Hello, I'm Omar. I'm a Chelsea supporter, and welcome to what is sure to be the most unpleasant episode in 3K to London's hopefully long running saga of discussions between me and my Arsenal loving friend Ebere. Ebere, how are you doing this evening?
I am doing great, especially because it put an exclamation point on a season that was quite tumultuous and unstable, for us. So to end it this way is more than we could have hoped for, and where I am um, happily surprised by the turn of events.
Well, for now, I'll simply say congratulations. I won't say that Arsenal didn't play well enough to win. They did. I'm sure you will join me in commiserating what was a match in which many things went against us. We started on the right foot, but we certainly didn't finish that way. And what can I say? It was not to be.
I do agree. Arsenal did have the rub of the green. The big decisions went our way. So we had that going for us. But we also played fairly better. And I think the decisive, factor was the glorious contribution of Aubameyang in this game. He just killed it.
I think when let's start by going back to a few of the things we had forecasted before. We had talked about the lineup. We had talked about the strategy.
My lineup was right, or at least I got all of the. I chose the same lineup as Arteta, the coach did, save for one position, that of the right-sided central defender in the back three. So I had put Socrates in there, but Holding ended up starting the game.
Yeah, I also I think all of mine, it was not too much of a guessing game. It was the same team that had played the week before, and the only question was whether Conte or Willian would be fit enough to start. Turns out neither of them were. So my lineup was accurate, and I'd say for the first 10 minutes it seemed like we had the better of it for sure. And I think the choice to put Rob Holding in instead of Socrates was a smart one, but it didn't actually work any better. He was, ripped apart for the first goal. He was promptly ripped apart at the beginning of the second half when Pulisic ran by him and unfortunately got injured in the process of running by him. And then Pedro came on, and within 1 second, Pedro had smoked him as well. So, I think that's probably a place that when it comes time to talk transfers with you in a later episode, we'll be looking at that position. But all things considered, we did get that the lineups basically right. Now, as far as strategy, there was quite a divergence between you and I. In your case, you had forecasted that Arsenal would be quite a bit more closed. And I was hoping or thinking it would be an open match. It certainly started an open match. I'd say the second half and the first half were quite different, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think we started the game hoping to be tighter, but I think we were undone by the early goal. So we had to become a bit. We had to chase the game. And that of course necessitated a change in our tactical approach. But I think if we had scored the first goal, for instance, I think we would have maintained a fairly controlled and tighter approach to the game. So I think the divergence in my thinking about how we were going to set up fell victim, to the fact that we conceded first and we conceded early.
Okay, so tactically, we both seem to have the same strategy to one extent, which was attack via our left-sided players attacking the right-sided defenders. In your case, it was Holding. In our case, it was Azpilicueta, where there were clear mismatches in speed or skill.
I think you're spot on. I think you're quite right. Um, right after when we settled into the game, at about probably the 15 minute, 16 minute mark, we started pinging the ball. But I mean, I could count about two or three times, when Luis and Tierney took turns, just pinging the ball down the left channel, to try and find Aubameyang. And, the goal predictably came from that side. Tierney, swung the ball, in that trajectory and that arc right over, Aspilicueta, who was running with Aubameyang, and that resulted in the penalty. So that was yes, that particular tactic was quite noticeable. I also noticed, though, that in the first 15 minutes at least, Chelsea was working on dispossessing the Arsenal midfield, particularly working on both Xhaka and particularly Ceballos. Ceballos actually did not have a very good game because of this tactic that Chelsea employed, which was to nick the ball in the middle of the park, while these players were trying to turn. And that was fairly effective in the first 15 minutes of the game, as well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you could have rewound 10, 15 years and seen the roles completely reversed in the way that we both decided to attack those sides. Chelsea had the ball on the ground and was passing pretty intricately, and that's how the first goal came about. As you said, the overload, Mason Mount was pinching in and trying to challenge Ceballos or Xhaka when they collected the ball. And that worked very well initially for the first 10 minutes. I mean, of course, a game is 90 minutes. So after that, it seems like Arsenal got the grips of that and started going from deep with the long ball, which if it was Luis to Drogba, we would have said same old Chelsea. So it's interesting that Arsenal chose that tactic, but it worked. It definitely worked.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, so I think also we talked about it a little bit earlier in the previous episode about your thoughts about Jorginho being a potential weakness and how that would be a focal point for Arsenal. And I didn't think that really happened, but I think the main reason that didn't happen is because Kovacic was really he was playing the way he normally plays these days, which is he was being the motor, he was moving the ball between the lines, and he actually had a at least for the first period of the game, really was running our engine in the middle, and Jorginho, as a result, had a lot of the pressure off of him.
That is true. I mean, yeah, that particular prediction did not pan out as I thought it was going to. And I am a bit disappointed about that. I think we could have put more pressure on Jorginho in that game if we put in a bit more effort into that.
Yeah.
But I think that that wasn't the focus of our game.
Okay, now we can't go on really too much further without talking about a couple of pretty controversial or game-changing incidents, maybe I'll say. First of all, we had an incredible injury bout during this match that just really, I think sunk us in a big way. Especially when I think about the second half, especially with Pulisic. But to start with, I mean, Aspilicueta going off injured. He's our captain. He's probably still one of the best one-on-one defenders in the league. To lose him was a big deal. Christensen, I think, came in and deputized okay, but that, it still was a little bit shaky at first. As Zuma moved out to the right, and I remember telling you when we were watching that match that the minute Zuma moved out, I was a little worried. I thought he had the pace to deal with Aubameyang, but not the skill. And sure enough, he got absolutely taken to the cleaners for that second goal. So that was definitely one thing that hurt us pretty badly. Pulisic going off injured was a massive blow. He obviously scored the first goal. He was a terror the whole time. He was at that time getting ready to shoot, after having run right past Rob Holding. So to lose him, he was clearly the most influential member of the squad during the match. He was our Aubameyang, if you will. Really hurt us, and to lose Pedro at the last minute obviously didn't affect the game that much, but poor guy, I mean, it looks like he dislocated his shoulder and he's about to leave the club. I mean, that's terrible luck.
Yes, my commiserations though on those injuries. I mean, they were clearly catastrophic for Chelsea in this game, particularly the injury to Pulisic, as you were saying. He was clearly on the ascendancy. He posed a threat, and created problems for the Arsenal defense that we didn't really have answers for. That was a fairly substantive loss to Chelsea. Um, Aspilicueta also was, fairly significant in the sense of the fact that he is the leader of that back line. The stability and assurance that he brought to the younger defenders, sort of disappeared when he left with that injury.
Okay, now let's talk about something that really did change the game in a big way, and that is the two bookings to Kovacic. The first one, I think, is debatable. It was, if you look at it, you could make the case either way. In my view, Xhaka stepped across the ball in order to protect it and drew the foul. In another case, someone might say, well, okay, he came flying in. Let's just put that one on the side. It was what it was. The second booking was an absolute farce. And what amazes me is that, we've talked probably endlessly as fans about how VAR needs to be fixed for next season because in certain ways it is ruining the game. In other ways, I think it's valuable. But, toes offside is one of those things that needs to be looked at. And this kind of thing where you have a second bookable offense can't be reviewed by VAR, that is an absolute mistake. It needs to be fixed. Because if he had gotten another look at that, I think it's quite clear that wouldn't have been deemed a foul at all. It may have been deemed a foul. It certainly could have been deemed a dive by Xhaka, who embellished it in every way. And even on top of that, if I recall, there were some Arsenal players out, really remonstrating with the referee, including, you told me later, Holding, I think it was, that got a booking for waving an imaginary card, which I think was kind of an ugly scene, to be honest, during that match. But nonetheless, we'll just focus on Xhaka because that challenge really wasn't warranting, and it really changed the match in a huge way because it was still in the balance at that time when that happened.
Um, I would agree with your assessment on the second bookable offense, the second quote unquote foul. That was a clear mistake by the referee. However, I would disagree slightly with your assessment of how much impact it had on the game. If I recall, Obama had already scored the second goal by the time this happened.
Yes.
So I don't. So if I had to assess, why Arsenal won, it was because Aubameyang was just brilliant and took the chances that fell to him. I think Pulisic's absence is more of a factor, than Kovacic's sending off. If you ask me.
Then having 10 men, I'm surprised. Yeah, I mean, I would give the team Arsenal more credit than what you just gave them. This was not all about Aubameyang. He was on the end of those good moves and was supplied with what he needed. And our, in both cases, I think, well, in the penalties case, as we already mentioned, it just kind of flighted over the top and he won a foot race. In the second one was clearly not the first warning sign of that side being open, and he took advantage of that. But I think it was good buildup on the part of the team. I'm not saying we lost because Kovacic got sent off. I'm not saying that. I think we were beaten. But there's no doubt that being on 10 men down 2-1 is a mountain to climb, whereas, even sides, 2-1, certainly there was a possibility. I just want to talk about two other things that maybe certainly aren't as major as the earlier things we've talked about so far. But Martinez jumping out of the box and catching the ball and it being very difficult to tell whether he was in or outside. And it's interesting when we were talking about it, it seemed like your commentary said VAR looked at it and said nothing to worry about. On our side, there was none of that. And actually the commentators were quite perplexed even after the match for why they didn't replay it at least once or show whether he was in or out. It looked pretty clear, like, I mean, his body was clearly out. Whether he somehow kept his arms and the ball inside is a question, but that would have been a free kick in a good position in a late part of the match. I was surprised that they didn't spend a little more time on it.
Yeah, there was no replay of that incident. Also, on the station or stream I was watching it on. But like you said, or alluded to, the commentators, intimated or indicated that VAR had looked at it and thought it wasn't an issue or a problem.
Sure. I would say that the second thing is in the lead up to the second goal, Bellerin, who had just passed Rudiger and was on the break, touched the ball way too far and tried to recover it. Christensen came in and very cleanly got the ball, and Bellerin got sort of his foot stuck in there and really hammered Christensen, which I probably wouldn't be that sour about that at all if it weren't for the fact that we'd had 3 bookings, I think, in exactly the same way. Ross Barkley and Kovacic twice over that issue. I think even actually Mount got a booking on that sort of same way where just kind of sticking your foot in, thinking you can get the ball and you didn't. He totally missed it. The commentators made a big deal out of it. I personally felt, look, the rest of the goal happened separately. Sure, if they had blown for a foul, that goal wouldn't have happened. Okay, that I still can't say that Arsenal didn't play better than Chelsea, so perhaps the same result would have occurred. But it is a little bit just one of those things when you've had so many things go against you in a match. I mean, just one of those that just makes you feel a little, that extra bit sour.
I certainly can understand that. I certainly can. I can understand that. I also think you've put it in the proper context. That it only is important, because of the way, because of the inconsistencies, of the referee, which it was a yellow card offence, for 2 or 3 Chelsea players, before this happened. And it also resulted, that a goal, the second phase of the play, was when Arsenal scored the second and winning goal. So all of that, sort of makes it a talking point.
Exactly, a talking point, no more.
It does,
Yeah.
Exactly, no more. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up for today, Ebere. I just want to say, as usual, it's a pleasure. And thank you for going easy on me. I'm sure there will be time to return the favor in the future. But, for now, I'll just say congratulations, Arsenal, deserved winners of the Cup. And, may you hold on to it for as short a time as possible.
Well, thank you, Omar. I'm happy that we won. And I was just being myself. Of course, you did mention what some of my motivation, which is this wouldn't be the only game Chelsea and Arsenal are going to play. This won't be the only final we're going to contest. So there may be occasion in the future, for the favor to be returned.
Well, I would also add it just shows what a good friend you are. But yes, I think you can expect a similar level of magnanimity in your direction. So again, congratulations to you. I know I'm gonna have to.
Well, thank you, and congratulations to all Arsenal fans, out there, and congratulations to Chelsea as well, on having a solid, if not excellent season, and getting back getting into Europe, that's a solid achievement, under a rookie coach. I think that should not be overlooked at all.
Well, okay. Again, thanks to everyone out there. Ebere, thanks to you, and good night, sir. We'll speak to you soon.
Same here. Good night.